A billionaire CEO took his girlfriend out to dinner, but when he saw his ex-wife pregnant, What would you do if during a romantic dinner with your glamorous new girlfriend, you suddenly locked eyes with your pregnant ex-wife working as a waitress just a few feet away? Nicholas Walker had it all: wealth, power, and a flawless image carefully curated for the public eye. But in a single breath-stealing moment inside Chicago's most exclusive restaurant, everything he thought was behind him came crashing back. There she was, Emily Carter, the woman he once called his wife, the woman who vanished without asking for a dime in the divorce, the woman now carrying a child that might be his. That moment wasn't just awkward, it was explosive. But what hit harder than the shock was the secret she had been hiding and the truth Nicholas was never prepared to face. Why didn't she tell him? And why was she struggling alone? What began as a perfectly staged evening quickly unraveled into a high-stakes confrontation that would force Nicholas to confront the man he'd become and the father he never thought he'd be. Stay with us, because what happens next will challenge everything you thought you knew about love, regret, and second chances. Nicholas Walker was a man who thrived on control. As the CEO of one of Chicago's top financial firms, he wasn't just successful, he was untouchable. Dressed in a tailored navy suit and with his platinum Rolex gleaming under the soft lighting, he held the door open to Le Soleil, the city's most exclusive French restaurant, for his stunning girlfriend, Madison Blake. Madison was everything the magazines loved: long legs, red dress molded to her model-perfect figure, and a laugh just charming enough to hide her vanity. She walked in as if she owned the place, and Nicholas followed, his smile polished but hollow. It was all part of the image, the perfect power couple. And tonight, like every other night, Nicholas had chosen this stage carefully. Success was a performance after all. They were led to a center table, visible enough to be envied, but private enough to whisper secrets. Madison launched into talk about an upcoming charity gala and a potential Vogue couple's photo shoot. Nicholas nodded automatically, but his focus wavered, because out of the corner of his eye, he saw her. At first it didn't register, just a server carrying a tray of wine glasses across the marble floor. But then she turned slightly and his breath caught. That face, those deep brown eyes, that soft, steady grace even beneath the black apron and low ponytail, it was unmistakable. Emily Carter, his ex-wife, pregnant. The sight hit him like a punch to the ribs. His heart thudded violently in his chest as he stared at her belly. She was very pregnant. There was no mistaking it. The room spun for a brief moment, though he kept his expression composed. Madison was too busy adjusting her menu and talking about Paris to notice the change in his energy. "Nick, are you even listening?" she asked, irritation creeping into her voice. "What?" "Yeah, of course," he replied, eyes flicking away from Emily, too late to avoid suspicion. "I said Vogue wants to do a couple shoot." "Isn't that brilliant?" she smiled, missing the fact that his gaze had already drifted again. Emily reappeared near the bar, retrieving a bottle of wine, and for a split second their eyes met. Her steps faltered. The bottle nearly slipped from her hand, but with the practiced poise of someone who couldn't afford to break down in public, she straightened and walked past. Nicholas muttered, "Excuse me," and rose from the table. Madison barely looked up. "Bathroom?" He didn't answer. He moved fast, intercepting Emily near the staff entrance. Her eyes widened. She tried to step around him, but he blocked her way. "Emily," he said, voice low, sharp. Her mouth tightened. "Mr. Walker," she replied coolly, like she didn't know him better than anyone in the world. "Don't give me that," he said, lowering his gaze to her belly. "Is that what I think it is?" She held the tray firmly. "I don't know what you think, Nick. Are you pregnant?" "I am." "That's not your concern." His jaw clenched. "Don't play with me, Emily. If this baby is mine, why the hell am I finding out like this?" She inhaled slowly, like she'd rehearsed her answer 1,000 times. "Because my current condition has nothing to do with you." He took a step closer, barely able to contain the storm brewing inside him. "That's not your decision to make. This isn't the place for this conversation," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Then she turned and disappeared behind the swinging kitchen doors, leaving him standing there stunned, furious, and suddenly more lost than he'd ever been. When Nicholas returned to the table, Madison was now taking selfies, oblivious. He sat down, but his mind was racing. He wasn't the kind of man who let questions go unanswered, and now he had more questions than he could handle. That night in his penthouse overlooking the Chicago skyline, Nicholas stood by the window with a glass of whiskey in hand. The image of Emily, pregnant, tired, beautiful, in a way that cut deeper than anything he remembered, refused to leave his mind. They had divorced quietly 10 months ago. No screaming matches, no scandal, just silence. Emily had simply signed the papers and left. No demands, no money, nothing. At the time, he had told himself it was for the best. He needed space to grow his empire. She needed someone who could give her more than scraps of his time. So why did it feel like his lungs were caving in now? He sat down, opened his laptop, and began searching. It didn't take long to find her address in Oakwood, or that she was working double shifts. But what stopped him cold was something else. He remembered their divorce paperwork. She had refused everything. No alimony, no assets. "I just want to move on," she had said. He had taken it as a favor. Now it felt like a punishment. And then, another memory surfaced. Earlier that night, he had seen her slip a small envelope into the hand of a customer discreetly. Something about it hadn't looked like a simple tip or note. What was she hiding? What kind of life was she living now? Nicholas didn't sleep that night. As the clock ticked past 2 a.m., he sat in the dark staring at the phone. He still had her number. She hadn't changed it. He dialed. It rang 5 times and went to voicemail. He didn't leave a message. But as the silence returned to his penthouse, one thing had become clear. He wasn't going to walk away this time. Not from the truth, not from the baby, and not from her. We're sorry to pause the story here, but the next part reveals shocking truths that will change everything Nicholas thought he knew. Do you think Emily was right to hide the pregnancy from Nicholas? Should Nicholas fight to be part of the baby's life, or leave her alone for good? If this story touched you, please like the video and tap the heart to support more emotional storytelling. Right now, Nicholas couldn't focus. The next morning, he sat in his corner office, sleek glass-walled, with a view that stretched over Chicago's skyline, but none of it felt impressive anymore. The numbers on his screen blurred. The market updates he usually devoured with intensity were meaningless. His mind was stuck in a loop, spiraling around one truth: Emily Carter was pregnant, and he might be the father. But it wasn't just that. It was the way she looked at him, like he was a ghost from a life she no longer wanted to remember. That same afternoon, while pretending to review a merger report, Nicholas made a decision that would shift everything. He hired a private investigator. Not because he wanted to control Emily. He just needed to know. 2 days later, the report landed on his desk, and it felt like someone had sucker punched him in the gut. Emily had declined a high-paying job offer from a mid-sized firm, one of his competitors no less. She could have escaped the endless shifts at the restaurant, the stress of pregnancy on her feet all day. But she said no. The reason: she didn't want any association with Nicholas Walker. She had made it a condition. Nicholas couldn't breathe for a moment. She had run not out of greed or drama, but out of something else. Something he hadn't allowed himself to consider. Fear, regret, or maybe love that had finally worn out its welcome. Then came the part that broke him. 1 year before their divorce, Emily had visited a fertility clinic. She had been trying to conceive while they were still married, and he, so caught up in building Grayson Financial, had never even noticed. He never asked. He never listened. He never imagined that the woman who waited up for him every night in that cold penthouse wanted something more than just his last name. Emily had wanted a family. With him. Nicholas stared at the file like it was written in a language he'd forgotten how to read. What kind of man was he if the woman he married had to fight for motherhood behind his back? That night he returned to Le Soleil, but this time he didn't sit at the center table. He chose a shadowed booth near the back. Emily spotted him as soon as she walked in. Her posture stiffened, but she said nothing. He waited. When the restaurant finally emptied, she walked over with exhaustion in her eyes and a tired apron hanging from her hip. "What do you want, Nick?" she asked, folding her arms. "I just want to talk." She sighed. "Talking isn't something you ever had time for before." He stood. "Why didn't you tell me about the baby?" Her stare was steady. "Because you made it clear what kind of life you wanted. And this wasn't part of it. That's not your choice to make." Emily's voice trembled for a second, then solidified. It was exactly my choice to make, because I knew what would happen. You would stay out of guilt. Or worse, you'd stay and ruin both of us. He couldn't argue, because a part of him knew she was right, but he was done letting her carry the weight alone. I deserve to know my child, he said quietly. She hesitated. Then slowly, almost like a confession, she added, there was a time I considered giving him up. Nicholas froze. What? I went to an adoption agency. I sat in the waiting room. I had the paperwork. Her voice broke. But I couldn't do it. Not because of you, but because when I heard his heartbeat, I realized I could love him enough for both of us. Nicholas felt the floor slip beneath him. The idea that she had once nearly given away his child. It tore something inside him. But the reason behind it, that was worse. She had felt that alone. Before he could speak, another voice entered the conversation. Everything okay here? Nicholas turned to see a man tall, calm, confident, standing nearby. Emily stepped between them instantly. It's fine, Ryan. I'm handling it. Ryan. Of course, the manager. The man from the background who had now stepped into the center of the stage. Nicholas forced a smile. Friend of yours? Ryan didn't blink, just making sure she's not being cornered. She's my ex-wife, Nicholas replied coolly. And I'm the one who has to work with her every day, Ryan said, not backing down. So I'll keep asking. Emily quickly cut in. Stop, both of you. Nicholas turned to her. I just want to be part of this, Emily. She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in days. Then prove it. Stop talking. Stop showing up like a storm. Learn to stay. With that, she walked past him and out the front door. Nicholas stood, frozen tension still crackling in the air. What cut him most wasn't Ryan. It wasn't even Emily's bitterness. It was the realization that she was right. He didn't know how to stay, but for the first time in his life, he wanted to. We're deeply sorry to leave you hanging here, but the next part of the story will show how far Nicholas is willing to go and whether it's too late to fix what he broke. Do you think Nicholas truly deserves a second chance at fatherhood? If you were Emily, would you trust him again or give someone new like Ryan a chance? If this story moved you, please tap like and share your thoughts in the comments to support more emotional stories like this. Days passed, but Nicholas couldn't get Emily's words out of his mind. Stop talking. Learn to stay. He wasn't used to waiting. In business, he made decisions, closed deals, got results. But this wasn't a boardroom. This was life. This was love. This was something he'd walked away from once, and he wasn't going to let it slip again. Then came the call that changed everything. It was late. Nicholas was in a meeting when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. Mr. Walker, this is Gina. I'm Emily's neighbor. I didn't know who else to call. She's in pain. She won't go to the hospital. She's trying to be strong, but I think it's serious. Nicholas didn't wait to hear more. He stood up mid-meeting, grabbed his coat and ran. In minutes, he was outside her apartment building, in Oakwood, heart pounding harder than it ever had in a financial crisis. Emily was curled on the sofa, pale, gripping her stomach. Ryan was already there, his face tight with concern, trying to convince her to go. You don't have a choice, Emily. Nicholas said, his voice trembling. You and the baby need help. Now. She tried to protest, but another wave of pain silenced her. Without another word, Nicholas scooped her into his arms and carried her to the car. Ryan followed close behind, but stayed silent, knowing this moment didn't belong to him. At the hospital, time blurred. Emily was in labor. Early. Too early. Nicholas stayed by her side through it all, holding her hand, whispering words he never imagined himself saying. You're not alone. I'm here. I'm not leaving again. Hours later, the cries of a newborn filled the room. A boy. The doctor smiled. He's small but strong. You did great. Tears streamed down Emily's face. Nicholas felt his own throat tighten as he looked down at the tiny baby swaddled in a blue blanket. The nurse gently handed the child to Emily and she turned to him. He has your eyes, she said softly. Nicholas couldn't speak. He sat beside her, reached out and placed a hand gently over the baby's chest. It was rising and falling so quickly, yet steadily. For the first time in years, he felt something settle deep inside him, a kind of peace he had never known. In the days that followed, everything changed. Nicholas began showing up not with gifts but with time. He rearranged meetings, delegated authority. He learned how to change diapers, how to hold the baby just right. He even stumbled through lullabies late at night. Emily watched quietly, uncertain at first, but slowly she began to soften. He took her to appointments, brought her groceries, helped fold laundry while listening to her favorite music. He didn't just show up, he stayed. Then one bright afternoon, he took her and baby Liam to a park near the lake. Families walked past, children giggled in the distance, and Nicholas gently rocked Liam in his arms. "Emily," he said, turning to her on the bench, "I know I failed you. I know I hurt you, but I need you to know something. I've changed, not just for Liam, for me. Because for the first time, I see what really matters." She looked at him unsure. "I can't promise I'll be perfect," he said, "but I promise I'll never disappear again." Emily didn't answer immediately. She studied him, this man she once loved, this man who had broken her heart, and now somehow was stitching it back together with every small act. "I believe in change, Nicholas," she said finally, "but I've learned not to trust words. Time will tell." He nodded, accepting her terms. "Then I'll be here, every day, for however long it takes." And he was. In the weeks that followed, Nicholas became a real father, not just a presence, but a participant. He stayed through midnight, feedings, laughed at baby hiccups, and cried quietly the first time Liam gripped his finger. Emily watched, and slowly trust returned, not because he begged for it, but because he earned it. One night after laying Liam in his crib, Emily turned to Nicholas in the doorway. "You know," she said softly, "there was a time I thought I'd raise this child alone." Nicholas smiled. "So did I. And I was wrong." She stepped closer. "We're not there yet, but maybe we're getting closer." And for the first time in a long time, Nicholas felt something deeper than success. He felt home. We're sorry to pause the story here, but we want to hear from you. Do you think Nicholas truly redeemed himself as a father and partner? If you were Emily, would you let love in again or protect your heart? What do you think about this story? If it moved you, please comment number 3. Comment number 1 if you feel something is still missing. Comment number 2 if it was just okay. Tell us what country you're watching from, and don't forget to like, heart, and share this video if it touched your heart.